Oh, hi. It's been a while since I've talked about the Elder Scrolls Online, but ever since subclassing has arrived, the game has changed quite a bit, so I'm long overdue on updating my sorcerer healing build for PvP. So I'm taking a break from reviewing other games just to tell you what I'm running and why. And yes, even though in most cases you won't even need to have sorcerer as a base class to run this build, I still consider it an evolution of my previous sorcerer healer builds, since the primary gameplay still revolves around the class's mobility and a high healing output. It's just gotten even stronger now. As with my previous PvP healer build video, you can consider this build more of a template, and you are free to switch skills, gear and class skill lines around to suit your specific needs. For this video, I'll give you a few different options of setups you can run in various PvP scenarios. So whether you want to play Battlegrounds, chill in the Zerg, or try your hand at small skills or ball groups, stick around to see how you can keep your allies buffed and, more importantly, alive. If you prefer a written guide, I've uploaded one to my build page on ESO Hub, and I've also submitted these builds to Malcolm's website. I was also helped out for this video by Fuketsu, who helped with testing and provided both footage and feedback, so a big thanks to him. If you want to join the community of healers that we're both a part of, join the Healers Haven Discord, where you can ask all your questions about healing in ESO. All links are in the description. Now, without further ado, let's dive into it. Since update 46, subclassing allows players to switch out their class skill trees for skill lines of different classes. This enables players to make many different combinations, and it allows us to evolve the PvP builds I've talked about in the past, making them even stronger and more versatile. I'll go over some of the skill lines that you can use and then give you examples of how it all fits together. Our first skill line is the most central one to this build and playstyle: Stormcalling from the Sorcerer class. Stormcalling gives us access to Streak, a prime mobility tool, Power Surge, a powerful heal over time that also gives us the major sorcery buff, and Hurricane, a skill that gives us extra armor and speed. With the passives granting us extra recoveries and extra spell and weapon damage, we got a steady supply of strong heals. The second skill line that I would consider absolutely essential is Siphoning. This Nightblade skill line is mainly run for the Soul Siphon skill, the strongest healing ultimate in the game. It gives a big burst of healing to allies in a 28 meter radius around you, grants them major vitality, and keeps healing them over the next 4 seconds. It's the best oh crap button available, and it can give you and your allies an extra life. Siphoning also has some good passives, such as the one that gives you ultimate for drinking a potion. This passive has been nerfed for update 47 from 30 to 22, but even at that amount it's still a very useful passive to have. You can also run Siphoning attacks to give you an extra sustain boost. The third skill line is a flex spot. I have tried numerous options, and those experiments have resulted in a few favorites that shine in particular situations. For a tanky option, we have Soldier of Apocrypha, the Arcanist skill tree, and my preferred option in Battlegrounds. With this line, we can run the Gibbering Shelter ultimate on one bar, which allows us to tank through intense pressure. The only regular skill we use from this class line is Rune Guard of Still Waters. Together with the passives, the skill gives us a variety of defensive buffs, while also snaring enemies. When used well, this is an incredible defensive tool. Paired with the hard stun of the Streak skill that we already have, you can frequently interrupt enemy damage moments, allowing both you and your allies a moment to catch your breath. Do be careful using crowd control abilities in more organized environments, as careless use of these skills may interrupt your group's coordinated damage pushes. For unorganized play though, it's really awesome. For a more all-round healing and buffing option, you can run the Dragon Knight skill tree Earthen Heart. Its Igneous Weapons skill allows you to give minor and major brutality to your group, increasing everybody's spell and weapon damage. The Fragmented Shield skill, meanwhile, gives you 8 seconds of major mending, while also refreshing the minor brutality buff. Using these skills in concert with each other gives you super solid healing, and especially when paired with the aforementioned Soul Siphon ultimate and its major vitality buff, this can allow you to generate ridiculous healing spikes for your group when needed. As an added bonus, one of the passives gives you resources back per ultimate point spent. While it makes you less tanky than our previous option, it can still work well in Battlegrounds, and even more so in organized group play, where Earthen Heart is a must-have support skill line due to its weapon damage buffs. You might as well be the one to run it. Possibly the strongest healing option is running the Templar skill line Restoring Light. However, the way I set it up makes it shine only in specific situations. I refer to this as my Zergy build option, as it is mainly useful for healing Zergs and ball groups. The two skills that I use from this tree are Radiant Aura, which boosts your recoveries as well as those of your team, and the burst heal Ritual of Rebirth. Ritual of Rebirth is a radiant heal, meaning that it's cast in an area around you, rather than just in front of you like, for example, Blessing of Restoration. This makes it come in extremely clutch in keep and outpost fights, where there's oil and other crap all around you and you might not always have time to aim your heals while running around the structure. There are two downsides to this skill to take into account though. The shorter range makes it so you'll need to stay relatively close to your team in order to hit all of them consistently, making it harder to stay outside of big damage points while healing. Especially if you are participating in guild versus guild fights, you might still need to switch to Blessing of Restoration in order to keep your distance. The other downside is that the cost of the skill is relatively high, which means that I always play it in combination with at least one Magicka cost reduction glyph, and that I avoid it altogether in Battlegrounds, where sustain is lower due to a lack of champion points. That being said, when you play it in Zerg fights, the skill is pretty much unbeatable. At least on my server, PCEU, Ritual of Rebirth is not often used by groups that would greatly benefit from it, because someone got the idea out there that describing skill Healing Burst is just as good. From the many logs that I've seen though, it's not even close when it comes to pure healing power. The Restoring Light skill line also has other skills that you could use, but seeing as they are mostly ground based, I find that these facilitate more static gameplay, whereas the point of our build is to be highly mobile. We still have a few other options. If your base class is Sorcerer, you can run Dark Magic as a second Sorc skill line and provide negates for a more classic Sorc healing experience. Other healing skill lines, such as Green Balance or Living Death, are also on the table. In terms of your base class, you can use any of the classes whose skill trees have been mentioned, except if you want to run both Stormcalling and Dark Magic, in which case you would need to be a Sorcerer. In addition to the class skills, we also use the standard non-class skills of Blessing of Restoration as our burst heal, except when using Ritual of Rebirth, Echoing Vigor and Radiating Regeneration as our heals over time, and Illustrious Healing or Healing Springs, either morph is fine, as our ground area of effect heal. You can also use scribing skills to access certain buffs, or run synergy-based skills such as the Orb or Overflowing Altar from the Undaunted skill line. In conclusion, Stormcalling and Siphoning are the core skill trees of this build, and the third one depends on your goals and your own personal preferences. Mix it with the standard building blocks of PvP healing, and you get a pretty juiced up healer fit for any content. For gear, not too much has changed since the previous video. Wretched Vitality is still what we run in unorganized environments as a selfish set. Great Sustain is better than raw tankiness in most scenarios, and with Wretched Vitality being craftable, you can determine your own armor weight distribution. This is also down to personal preference, but for Battlegrounds and small scale I tend to go with 3 heavy, 3 medium and 1 light, while in larger organized groups I usually have 5 medium, 1 light and 1 heavy for ultimate healing power. The other set is buyer's choice, but especially for Battlegrounds I like running Rallying Cry. Rallying Cry gives our group a crit resistance buff that can be procced on 1 bar, making this set a very efficient defensive tool. The only downside is that Rallying Cry tends to be popular among damage dealers as well, so when you play with randoms there is a chance that you're both running the same set. The reason I still pick this set over others is that I consider it the number 1 set I want to have in my group. And if no one else is running it, in for example a Battleground, I immediately notice that both my survivability and that of my teammates suffers as a result. Even if someone else is running Rallying Cry already, it might well be that their uptimes are so low that you're better off running it yourself anyway. With subclassing, the incoming damage is so high that you will often need a defensive buff set such as this, and I personally don't like to rely on randoms for it. Alternative sets you could think of are damage buff sets such as Spell Power Cure or Olorim, or specifically for Battlegrounds, cleansing sets such as Curse Eater or Stendarr's Embrace. Other great sets are Gossamer and Robes of Transmutation. But these sets really need to be active on both bars to be effective, meaning that we cannot run these sets in combination with both a monster set and a mythic if we want to achieve solid uptimes. Speaking of monster sets, we are still running Ozazon, as the unique armor buff just makes it a must-have in any group. The mythic of choice hasn't changed either, with Death Dealer's Fate boosting our primary resources in battlegrounds or random groups while we are in combat. Snow Treaders are the primary choice for ball groups and most small scales. If you want to run Gossamer or Transmutation, drop the mythic and keep the monster set, which allows you to keep either of these buff sets active on both bars. The final puzzle piece is a heavy trainee chest, boosting our health pool a little more. Again, if you are running Gossamer or Transmutation, you won't have space for this. If you are playing in a more optimized group, you can swap out Wretched Vitality for either Phoenix Moth the Urge or Powerful Assault as a front bar set, and put Spell Power Cure as your back bar set. Weapon types also change per content. We always have a Restoration Staff, of course, but the other bar depends on the content. For Battlegrounds and small scale, Sword and Shield is the best as it gives us the best survivability. In large scale groups, run dual wield swords for extra spell damage and access to Quick Cloak. Traits and enchantments are pretty straightforward. The heavy chest is reinforced and the rest of the armor is impenetrable. Every piece should have a tri-stat glyph. For jewelry, you can go with either 2 Swift and 1 Infused, or with 3 Swift. Put a Magicka Recovery or Reduce Magicka Cost glyph on the Infused piece, and 2 increased Spell Harm glyphs on the Swift pieces. If you need more sustain, add more Recovery or Cost Reduction pieces. If you run Sword and Shield, make the sword Nirnhound and the shield impenetrable. If you run dual wield, make the main hand sword Nirnhound and the offhand sword powered. You can either run some basic absorb enchantments or escapist poisons. Your Restoration Staff should have the power trait with an increased weapon and spell damage glyph. All of this combined should give you a well-balanced setup that makes you tanky enough to absorb pressure, yet without sacrificing so much raw healing power that you turn into a block tank that has no group utility. Now let's cover some of the other basics of the build. The mandas we use depends on the content. I tend to favor the Atronach for extra Magicka recovery when I'm playing Battlegrounds or no CP, and the Ritual for extra healing done in the open world. For attributes, put points into Magicka until you reach about 20 or 21k, and put the rest into health. You should ideally have at least 35k health with buff food active. For my Breton, this means that I have 12 points into Magicka and 52 into health on my main Battleground build. Speaking of Bretons, you can run any race, but some of the details of this build, such as recoveries and attributes, might change depending on your racial passives. As said, I am a Breton, as the inbuilt sustain makes it very comfortable and effective to use as a healer. You can also be an Argonian, a Dark Elf, a High Elf, an Imperial, or really whatever you want. The buff food is Ozorga's Smoked Bear Haunch for Battlegrounds and small scale, and Ozorga's Red Frothgar for large scale and ball groups. Potions are usually tri-stat, but especially in more organized groups you might want to run immovability potions for coordinated pushes. Finally, we don't use anything from the vampirism tree, so we are mere mortals. Now, let's take a look at some of the build variants and how they look when it's all put together. You can also see my champion point distribution for each build, but remember that champion points are irrelevant for Battlegrounds and the no-CP servers of Cyrodiil and the Imperial City. Even though pure classes are pretty much dead, the Sork healing playstyle of old is still very much alive. With a solid mix of mobility, survivability and raw healing power, you can still be a vital asset to your team, be they complete randoms or over-enthusiastic sweats. As I said in the beginning, you can use this template and switch out anything you like to better suit your specific playstyle. While subclassing has definitely made the game more stale in some areas when it comes to its meta, I think the system, when applied to PvP healing in particular, leaves a lot of room for creativity and individual playstyle and skill expression. And with that, we've come to the end of the build video. If you have any questions about this build, feel free to drop them in the comments. If you want to know more about PvP healing in general, I'd once again suggest joining the Healers Haven Discord. I'm there with a bunch of other healers, so feel free to join by clicking the invite link in the description. I feel like this may well be the last build video I'll make, since I anticipate that we'll slowly be seeing the implementation of the Cyrodiil Champions, or Vengeance system, in ESO's open world PvP, which would render the concept of a build pretty much obsolete. I also play PvP much less these days, as I've neglected other parts of the game for too long now, and I want to explore more of that, as well as other games entirely. I even talk about some of those on my channel these days. So I have no clue what my next video will be about, but I hope to see you there.